Flippity boop. Hello. If I am live, if you can hear me, if I look handsome, put in a 1 in the chat. All right. There's a 2. There's a 3. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me, if audio is good, and everything looks gravy. All right. Cool. Yeah, there we go. All right. Today, second live stream. If you struggle with a lack of motivation, excessive procrastination, lack of discipline, this is for you. We're in the week 2 of the Driven 30 challenge, a challenge in which we do 6 habits every day for 30 days without missing. If you miss a habit, you start over. And it looks like a lot of people have already started over. They didn't stick to one thing and they were honest about it, which is great. And then they started over. And I believe it's because of one thing that they are lacking. And this one thing makes the difference between those who struggle to be disciplined and, they make excuses, or procrastination is oftentimes the word, right? Or not being motivated in quotation marks. And those versus those who hardly have to try, right? Their mind and body is just pulling them towards action, and it's just second nature. They just, of course, I'm getting up and I'm doing the habits and I'm doing these things and I'm working towards my goals. It's the difference between being, again, quote unquote, motivated versus driven. Because when you're driven, you're not driving. There's something else that is driving you. And it's when you can't not do the actions. When your brain goes, of course I'm going to do it, because it's a no-brainer, right? And you don't have to fight it. It's just everything is in alignment and you just like, right? There's no internal fight where you have to push yourself to do it. All right. So the people that have quit or have to restart, they usually don't have something that drives them to action, right? They're looking for motivation, but they're not driven. Being driven is an internal force that pulls you towards action, right? And they're not driven because they don't have a strong why and a driving vision, a vision that drives them, right? This is what we're going to talk about here today, which is a driving vision. And this is not just having a vision, because there's a lot about goals. There's a lot of people that say, yes, I have goals and I have a vision, but I struggle with procrastination. I'm not really, again, motivated. I hate that word, but motivated. Like, how many of you know what you want, but you still don't feel like it really moves you? And I think it's because there's a few very specific things that are missing in how you approach your vision and goals that I want to touch on here. So there's a few simple tweaks that if you implement these, I think you become unstoppable. And I've never struggled with this in the recent years because I know exactly what I want and I have a clear plan, and I have to force myself not to do things, right? Sure, sometimes I struggle with things here and there, with a little bit of screen time or, doing that meditation, but it's generally very easy for me. Like, this Driven 30 challenge is very easy. Like most of the things I do anyways, and same goes for my friends, right? I want to give a quick disclaimer as always. I'm just a dude on the internet. I've learned a lot of things, but I'm still figuring stuff out myself. Personally, I've achieved goals that I thought were impossible, building my first business at age 20 and then selling it when I was 22. I'm now 27, even just growing this YouTube channel, moving to the US. All these seemed like impossible goals, but I've achieved them. So I know a few things here and there, and everything I'm sharing here, I didn't come up with. It's usually what I've learned from other people and from, things over the years. So I think some of you, this could save years of struggle. So don't skip this. Hear what I have to say, have an open mind, and maybe this could be helpful. Also, once again, I got to give a shout out to the sponsor, Driven, because Element, Driven is not the sponsor, Element. So Driven 30 is free, right? There's 20,000 people in the Circle community that are currently in there, right? It takes a lot of work from our team, and they're working really hard. We're all working really hard, and technically this is losing us money, we're literally losing money doing this. We're not charging you for it, and we don't want to. We want to continue to give this away for free, and we would not be able to do this without our sponsor Element. They're making all of this possible, and if you want to support us, this is how. Check out Element, because they're the ones that are supporting us, right? So it's an electrolyte drink mix. Very simple. You have your liter of water, you pour it in, tastes amazing, and it's electrolytes. They are essential for mental and physical performance, and even a mild deficiency can inhibit that, right? So if you're deficient, it can lead to headaches, fatigue, all that. And I've used it for over 6 months now during workouts, for example, during the Driven 30, because that's especially when you sweat a lot and you need to replenish. So check it out, guys. There's no sugar. It's sodium, magnesium, potassium, all the essential stuff. It tastes great. It makes me look forward to working out. So it's almost like a reward for yourself, which again makes it easier to exercise. It's perfect for the Driven 30. And we talked about it in the last live stream. How can you make it more fun? This is one of the ways that I make it more fun and easier for me to do these things. So check out Element with the link below. I'm going to put it into the chat right now. And if you're thinking about getting it anyways, now's the time, right? Looks like I can't pin the comment, but all right. Now I have it on the screen. I don't know how to pin this comment, but we'll have it in the link in the description for you to check it out. And it's a special offer that you don't get on the website. So you get a free sample packet of every single flavor they have, so you can try them all and find your favorite. Big fan of raspberry, personally, and also the hot chocolate one, which you can have with hot water, which is amazing. I also put it in my oats after workouts. They offer no questions asked refunds on all orders, so you don't even have to send it back to them. Just try it out. If you're benefiting from the Driven 30 and you want to support us back and say thank you, this is how you do it. Check out Element with a link. Trust me, you'll not regret it. Awesome. Now, this driving vision, getting back to that, you see a very distinct correlation between people that have an amazing life and somebody, they have created a life with intention, and how clear their vision is. So you can see, it's almost like a spectrum. The stronger and clearer somebody is on the life they want, the greater their life is, and the happier they tend to be. Because most people, they just have some vague idea of, I think I want to, one day do this and have that in my life, but they kind of just wing it, right? Which is fine to an extent. But oftentimes these people are scared of setting goals and they don't want to be disappointed. And oftentimes the default is just short-term pleasure. If you don't have a vision, it just leads to us doing the things that we know aren't good for us, but we don't have a reason not to do them, right? So one of the biggest realizations I've had is that if you struggle with, again, motivation, procrastination, all these words that people are always throwing around, it's usually not because you're not disciplined enough. It's usually not because you don't have enough willpower. It's usually not because you just need to get over yourself and just do it. It's usually because you lack clarity. That's it. Or in other words, your brain or your mind lacks clarity, right? Clarity on your vision, what you want, clarity on why it's important, clarity on if it's worth it at all, clarity on what's involved, and clarity on how to get there, all these things, right? So you don't have a procrastination or laziness problem, you have a clarity problem. Whenever I hear somebody saying, I'm just not motivated, I'm procrastinating or whatever, I just hear, I don't have clarity. Your brain is working perfectly as it should. Trust me. If you procrastinate, there's nothing wrong with your brain. You're just not giving it what it needs in order to move forward. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. And it's not just about getting clear on your goals. You can be as clear as you want on your goals and still stay stagnant. It goes a lot deeper than that, and I want to dive into that here. So this is a story of a treasure hunter that I think illustrates this perfectly. It's a true story about Mel Fisher. Mel Fisher is this chicken farmer in the 80s who hears about this treasure in the ocean in Florida. and he says, I'm going to find it. He gets funding, he gets a crew, he searches for it every single day for years, always saying, today's the day. Today I'm going to find that treasure. And after years of searching, no treasure so far. His wife leaves him, he runs out of money eventually, but he doesn't give up. In fact, he doubles down. He convinces investors to invest more money, get more funding, keep searching. The kids don't talk to him anymore. Everyone thinks he's crazy. Years go by, and he still doesn't find the treasure. Now, at this point, he just keeps convincing people to invest and give him more money, still saying today is the day. And 16 years of his life go by. It's a true story, so I'm not making this up. You can look it up after this live stream. Did he find the treasure after 16 years? I'll tell you in a bit. All right. The goal of this story is that I want to highlight 3 things that we can learn from him. Because what's the difference between someone like him, who's persistent for 16 years without finding the treasure, versus someone who doesn't get out of bed in the morning or procrastinates and isn't motivated and is like, I don't feel like it today. This guy was on the ocean on a daily basis for 16 years. What led to that persistence? It was not just a vision. That's not enough. There are 3 components to it that your brain needs in order to drive you to action. In fact, it's 3 things that your brain needs to believe to make you driven to take action. Not just motivated, but driven, where it's a no-brainer for your brain, and action is just the default state, right? So there are 3 beliefs necessary. Number 1, in order for him to take this action persistently for 16 years, number 1, he had to believe there's a treasure. If Mel Fisher didn't think there was a treasure, he wouldn't have done any of it, right? Plenty of people doubted it. And if you doubt it, if you doubt that there's treasure, your brain is not going to drive you to action, or it's going to be much harder, and you're going to have days on and days off, right? He knew the treasure was there. That's one thing he had to believe. The second thing he had to believe in order to drive him to action was he had to believe that he's able to find it, right? You may be like, yes, it's there, but what if he believed I would have to get super lucky to find it, and I don't have the equipment? Or what if he believed I'll probably never find it? Yes, it's there, but I'll probably never find it. He wouldn't have done what he did, right? So he had to believe that he's able to find it. So you're not going to be driven at all to go after a goal you secretly don't believe you can achieve, right? So that component is missing for a lot of people, and we're going to dive into that later. Number 3, yes, let's say you know the treasure is there and you believe you can find it. The third belief you have to have, or he had to have, is he had to believe it's worth it. He had to believe it's worth the struggle. If after 10 years of searching for it, it was only worth $50,000, would you be driven to take action, right? Would he have done this? No, he wouldn't have. So 3 things. Number 1, he believed there's a treasure. Number 2, he believed I can get to it. I can find it. It's possible. And number 3, it's worth it, right? The thing about your brain or your mind, whenever I say brain, I mean mind, same thing in this context. It's very energy efficient, right? Something needs to have a benefit, it needs to be achievable, and it needs to be worth it. Otherwise, why would you do it, right? And you need to convince your brain of that. If your brain isn't convinced or one of these isn't connecting, you're not going to be driven to action. And that's what's missing for a lot of people. And it has been for me for a long time. And even to this day, there's probably things missing, right? But we're going to uncover these here. So did he and his crew find the treasure after 16 years? 400 million. 400 million. Some sources say 500 million. There's different numbers everywhere, but the gist of it is a lot of money. After 16 years, I think his son found it, who was part of his crew, and they all got really rich. So this entire story is stolen from Tony Robbins. He talks about this as an analogy and these 3 components. So no credit goes to me, but this has been super helpful, so I wanted to share it here. And yeah, let's dive into the 3 components that may be missing for some people. Let's see. So if you try to do something, but it requires a lot of force, a lot of motivation, a lot of struggle. In other words, you're not driven, where action just happens and you can't not do it. It's because one of these three components isn't clicking and your brain or your mind is not convinced, right? It doesn't see that there's treasure, or it doesn't see that it's achievable, or even if it was achievable, it's not really worth it because there's also pain involved with that, right? So your brain is working perfectly. It's just that you need to give it what it needs. So number one, maybe you don't think there's a treasure. That's exactly the reason why I don't wax my armpits. Because why would I do that? There's no benefit for me. There's no treasure for me. It's just pain. And that's why I'm not doing it, in case you wondered, right? For anyone who asked. I think all of us, we know, being in this challenge, that there is a treasure here. Otherwise, we wouldn't do this challenge. We believe there is a treasure. So we can dive into this a little bit, but I don't think it's the biggest missing piece. Because a lot of people have goals and they kind of know what they want. They can definitely be more clear. We can dive into that too. But I think it's more the other two. So the second one is you don't fully believe that you can do it. Yes, the treasure is there, but you don't believe that you can do it, or don't believe that you can achieve a result or a benefit, right? Whether it's doing the Driven 30 or any other behavior or goal that you're after, right? Personally, I think there's $1 trillion opportunity, $1 trillion treasure in launching a company that competes with Apple. However, personally, I don't think I can do that. So I'm not driven to do that. This is, to me, seems impossible. To me. For me to put it into action, right? Somebody could do it. Personally, I don't think I could do it because I don't want to, and therefore I'm not driven to go out and compete with Apple, right? Makes sense. So oftentimes, if you're trying to achieve something, but you have doubts, right? That destroys your drive. You're like, yes, I want that thing, but can I achieve it? If there's doubt, you're going to be much less driven, and you're going to end up procrastinating, lacking with discipline, and you're just not fully in it. You're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? Let me give you this example. Imagine you are at the Olympics, and you're an athlete, and you know that you have a 1% chance. You have a 1% chance of winning if you go all out with your training. You go all out. You give it your all. You have a 1% chance. How driven would you be to train? What if you had a 30% chance that if you went all out with your training, you would win the gold medal? How driven would you be then? Would you be more driven? Let's say you had a 50% chance. Or what if you had 100% certainty that if you train your lungs out and you give it your all, you will 100% win the gold medal? How driven is that athlete going to be? So increasing the certainty and the likelihood of success, and your belief in the likelihood of success, just makes it easy. The more you can make yourself believe that, and we can dive into how to do that, right? For me personally, when I launched my first business, when I started the YouTube channel, initially, yes, with the first business, there was doubt. It seemed impossible until I made a plan and I implemented the things that I'm talking about here. But eventually, and especially with the YouTube channel, there was never a question whether I would succeed at it. It was always just a question when. I would rather achieve it in 3 years rather than 10 years, right? But there was no question I'm going to achieve it. And that's what makes it very easy to take action. Because if you just only see a 20% chance in your business taking off or your YouTube channel ever getting somewhere, your brain is just like, that energy, can we invest that somewhere else? Because the chances are pretty low, right? Number 3, maybe you don't really think the benefit or the result is worth the struggle, right? So let's say you have the treasure. Yes, I can get there. But getting there is like, there's a lot of pain involved and it doesn't seem worth it. That can also mess you up, right? That's also where it doesn't click for a lot of people, and it's very sneaky. And I'm going to give you a tool that really helped me with that. So you may be like, yes, I want to build that business, but is it worth quitting video games for, right? Is it worth, giving up Saturday nights with the boys or the girls' night out, right? Or you might be like, scrolling on TikTok is so fun. I don't know if I'm willing to give that up, right? And oftentimes we have to. And keep in mind, some of these excuses are valid, right? Like some goals aren't worth it for us. For example, I don't want to become a billionaire like Elon Musk because I'm not willing to sacrifice my health, a lot of my relationships, right? Or like time with my kids when eventually I build a family. That is not something that makes it worth it for me to pursue a crazy goal like that. It's just, no, I'm not driven to do that, right? Or I think, have you ever seen these Russian slap contests where they just slap each other across the face? And they compete for like I think it's less than $1,000, whoever the winner is, and they just create massive brain injury. Yeah, it doesn't seem worth it for me, right? It doesn't matter whether I think there's a treasure and I can win a few $100 or I think I can do it. It's not worth it for me. I'm not going to do it. So I'm not driven to do these things, right? So knowing these three components, let's talk about it. How can we convince your brain to drive you so you don't have to struggle anymore and make it easier? There's still going to be struggle, but it's going to be very different. It's going to feel very different. And there's a few tools that I want to share with you. All right. So, component number one, you got to believe that you got to prove that the treasure exists, right? You got to define the treasure. And in this case, it's creating a vision, meaning a goal. You have a reason for why you do something, right? You want to end up somewhere and it's amazing, right? There's a treasure. So it could be, yeah. And I think most people don't really have one. Yes, they have some sort of goal or a vague idea, but a really clear, strong vision where it's like, I know what it looks like, I know what it feels like, I know exactly what I want. Most people don't have that. And that's why they never really get there because they haven't defined it clearly and they haven't showed their brain, hey, look at this carrot. It's right in front of you. Come on. You know? And it's not just a goal, it's a clear vision. So, what do I mean by vision? I mean a clear picture of what you want your life to look like. Your circumstances, what you are like, what your day feels like. Yeah, and it's. I would recommend 3 years out, right? So it could be 3 years out, it could be 1 year out, it could be 10 years out, it could be, by the time you're 80 and let's say, yeah, you're on your deathbed. Personally, I want to die later than 80, but let's just say that you could do it for any time, right? And you could have multiple ones, right, for different stages. I would recommend 3 years because I think 3 years is far enough for you to make significant progress, but it's not too far where it feels like, I can do that later. It's like 3 years is like that's fairly soon. For me, 3 years is I'm going to be 30, right? I'm 27 now. That feels soon enough. Like I can set a vision there where I'm like, yes, I'm willing to work towards things because it's going to happen soon. So, how do you create a vision? You want to do it from an inspired and empowered state. Don't do it while you feel like crap and you're miserable, right? Or you're unsure of yourself because you're going to not be very resourceful. You're going to be stunting your creativity and also your self-belief. You want to do it in a place where you feel inspired and you feel great, right? And I would recommend going out in nature. And I've done this so many times. I do it repeatedly. I do it every once in a while on the weekend, just daydreaming about what I'm working towards, right? But I would recommend going out in nature, just taking a day off and listening to music that inspires you and then taking your journal with you. And you almost want to treat it like a buffet where you just pick and choose. You don't think about what can I achieve, what would be realistic. No, with a vision, you want to pick things that excite you. If you could have anything, what would you choose, right? If you could have anything that excites you, what would you choose? And allow yourself to be unrealistic. Like screw being realistic. There's a caveat to this. I would say most people try to be realistic. Try not to be, but when it comes to the closer timeline, let's say you set a 1 year goal, with that, be more realistic, right? When it comes to a 10-year goal or 10-year vision, be as unrealistic as you want. Because most people, they overestimate what they can do in a year and they underestimate what they can do in a decade. Also, Tony Robbins quote, if you haven't noticed yet, big fanboy. So it's just true. Seeing it from my own experience, I'm in a great spot. If you give things long enough time, you end up somewhere where you didn't think you would end up, much further than you thought you would. But I do tend to set yearly goals that are way too high. But things are exponential, right? You may make 10 grand if your first year in business. The next year you make 100 grand, which is 10x. The next year you make 1 million, and then 10 million, right? It's like, it's very exponential, right? And that's the trap that people fall into. So be more realistic on the yearly goal, but we're setting a 3-year vision. So feel free to think big. You can do a lot in 3 years. You can change everything in 3 years. So another thing is, don't worry about how you're going to achieve this. Don't worry about the details. This is just a vision, think bigger. Don't worry about, yes, I want to build this, but I have no idea how, so let me not set that as a goal. Don't worry about that for now, okay? It's not about planning everything out yet, or how you'll get there, because the how can change. For example, if you're like, I want to build a business that I love, maybe the industry or the field that you want to work in because that's your thing. Maybe you don't, that's fine too, right? Keep it open. But you don't need to know the business model or how you launch it or, all that. You don't need to know that yet. As long as I know how much I want to make, what it feels like, what it allows me to do, some benefits I get from that. Maybe other traits like, the difference you want to make, or just other things that you want to have in place, right? Oh, I want to have a small team. I want to have a big team. I want to have, don't worry too much about the small details. Yes, the clearer you can be, the better. But from experience, you don't have to be super specific yet because things will change. Personally, when I did this for the first time and I had a vision board, I had these different cars on there until I realized I don't care about cars at all. Why do I have that on here? I just didn't know. I just thought, this is what everyone else is doing, so I think I should want this as well. You end up wanting things that you don't actually want, and when you realize that, then just take it off, And if you don't know what you want yet, that's fine. Just pick something that excites you now. You can always change it. And you can always just pick things that are undeniably exciting. For example, I'm doing something I love. Who wouldn't want that, right? So try to get as clear as possible. Keep it flexible. Some things to think about was, what's your career like? Doing something I love, making this amount of money, whatever characteristics. Health and vitality. What does that area of your life look like, right? Are you fit? Like for me, I would love to get 180 pounds in 3 years, right? At 10 to 12% body fat. Relationships. Are you in a relationship? Are you in multiple relationships? Whatever you're into, right? Finances. What do they look like? Your emotions, your emotional health. How do you feel, right? What is your relationship with yourself? What are you like? What do people say about you? What are you able to do for others? What are some bucket list adventures or like things you want to tick off? Like, I want to retire my parents, right? Where do you live? How much do you travel? All these things are things to think about, and have fun doing this, and do it often and regularly in the mornings. Again, that's why journaling is so powerful, because sometimes I just sit down in the mornings and I journal about how excited I am about the future. And I just reiterate my goals and I just get excited about that. And I define it more clearly and I make adjustments. So that's why journaling is so powerful. That's why it's part of the Driven 30 habit list, right? And you'll find that, personally, I found this, the goals that you set long-term, I've achieved them. I've achieved all the goals that I sat down for and really was intentional about, because if you give it enough time and consistency, you'll get there. And it's very weird, like seeing goals that you wrote down in the past and then noticing, oh, that's my life right now. Like my friend Kyle, for example, my roommate, he set this vision that I want to talk to the best health experts in the world. I want to be like an athlete. I want to be extremely healthy. I want to work 15 hours a week and make 6 figures a year. And he looked at that, and he defined, I want to live with other entrepreneurs. He looked at that and he was like, that's exactly my life now, right? And if you give it enough time, you'll get there. Another helpful thing is having a vision board. There's a helpful visual anchor. Can be great too. Cool. That's the first one. So that's how you create the treasure that then makes you go out onto the ocean. Yeah. Number 2 is believing that you can get there. So the treasure is there, but can you get there, right? You now have a vision, and the next two will allow you to make it a driving vision, one that actually moves you. Because it's easy to have a vision, but one that really drives you and that you feel like you can achieve, that is also worth it, that's different. It takes a lot more self-inquiry and self-reflection and self-awareness. So if you don't think you can achieve it, or you don't know how to get there, it won't drive you. So we need to make a plan, or, in the Mel Fisher example, the guy who found the treasure, we need a map, so we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So imagine if Mel Fisher had a map of where the treasure could be near, right? It's like, imagine there's one Mel Fisher who's like, okay, it's somewhere in the ocean near Florida, I think. And then there's a Mel Fisher who's like, I have a map, and these are the 3 most likely areas where the treasure is. You're going to be much more driven. So that's what we do here. We create a map that creates more belief in our ability to get there. So usually, and you're going to notice this, we procrastinate when our brain doesn't have clarity on a plan. So it's just overwhelmed and it feels like this unachievable goal. So whenever you procrastinate, catch yourself and try this out. So the cue to procrastination, let's say you have a big assignment to do, right? Or you need to write a big newsletter for your business or whatever. It's usually because it feels like this big task and your brain doesn't have clarity on what's involved. It doesn't have a map, right? And the cure to procrastination is just making a plan, Make a list of the things that need to be done. It's like, okay, I need to first pick a topic for the newsletter. Then I need to write out some bullet points. And then I need to write into a text and then send it off. And I'll take about an hour. And oftentimes you realize it's not as much as you thought. To your brain, it felt like this big thing was like, I have to do this and I don't know what to pick. And, people are saying bad things about the last newsletter I sent, whatever it is, right? Usually your brain realizes it's not that much work. And then it's very easy to start taking action, right? So always start with making a plan and getting clarity on the way there. The thing is, your vision. You may be thinking your vision, but how could you possibly get there? This is how you do it. You create a plan and create clarity, right? And here we're getting strategic. We're not getting deep into the how, but at least a rough plan or a rough map on how to get to that vision, right? Just things that increase the confidence of us being able to achieve it and allow our brain to feel like this is achievable. So making a map increases your confidence. And this takes journaling, self-inquiry, deep thinking, and self-awareness. And I can't stress this enough about journaling. People are really think lazy. Your brain is think lazy. It doesn't want to expend energy. But when you have a deep journaling session and you really keep digging and digging and digging for the answer, you'll find it. But it takes digging. So don't be think lazy. So here's a few things that you can journal on or ask yourself. When you have a vision and you want to create more confidence in order to get there. Number 1, how can I get there? Just ask yourself that question, right? Making a rough plan, keeping it flexible. What milestones would be required, right? If you had a business, okay, first milestone is I need a product, I need to distribute the product, and then I need to build a team, right? What resources would you need? What are some, Alex Hormozy talks about this, traits, beliefs, and skills. Usually you're lacking one of these. Which ones do you need for that, right? In order to, let's stick with that example, building a business, right? What are the traits that you need? You probably need to be able to limit your screen time and journal and exercise and meditate daily. Driven 30, that's why we're here. What are the beliefs, right? You need to believe that you can do it, for example. Just list them all out. What are some skills? Basic business skills. You need to know supply and demand. You need to know how to solve a problem, right? Mentors and examples could also be a thing. Who's somebody who's already achieved the thing that I want to achieve? How did they do it? If you can literally copy their map, and it's not just a map that gives you a rough area, but it's like a map that is exactly step by step, you're going to have much more confidence to achieve that goal. It's so obvious. So I'm probably preaching to the choir, maybe yes, I know, makes sense, but are you doing it? Right? What actions would be required to get there, right? What would I need to let go of? What are the sacrifices, right? Because there's always sacrifices involved. Maybe you need to sacrifice, for me, one of my visions is to live more in gratitude and just love my life no matter what is happening. And one of the things I need to sacrifice is worry, which is a luxury. Worrying is a luxury that feels good because it creates certainty. It makes you connect with other people because you're like, oh no, I'm scared about this. And people go, oh no, it's fine. That is a luxury. That's something I need to let go of, right? So getting really clear on that map, and okay, what is the game plan? What is the strategy? How do we get there, right? For your confidence as well, what identity do I need to adopt for this? Or why am I able to do this, right? Reinforcing that, creating proof and evidence or references where you're like, hey, I did this other thing before, so I can get there because I've done this other challenging thing before, right? Which is why the Driven 30 is a great reference experience for a lot of people. They can then say, I did the Driven 30. What can I do now? These goals that seemed unachievable before now seem more achievable, and you're more driven towards action because you have more confidence. And we're going to get more into the identity piece in later live streams because I think it's a crucial piece for that as well. I think a good example is me starting my first business. I had no idea of anything when I first started. I was low on money. I had some money saved up when I was traveling in Australia and washing dishes. I was a dishwasher. I was working in construction, and I had no knowledge, nothing. I didn't even know where to start with business, but my goal was to make it back to Australia by making money online. I was back in Germany, and my girlfriend was Australian, and I promised her I would come back, right? And I didn't have confidence. I was like, how would I build a business? I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm 20 years old at the time, right? But I had a vision. I had the treasure, I need to make X amount of money. I need to be location independent. It needs to be sustainable, right? And then I created a map from there. I was like, okay, I need to learn the basic business skills. So I bought some books. I read them. I need to find a model that fulfills that vision, that goal, right? It's location independent, makes X amount of money. And ideally a model that also doesn't require too much money because I didn't have money or not much. Or I need to figure out how to get money, right? So then I started selling all my stuff. I started started selling my stuff. I started working side jobs. I was working in a nightclub. It's terrible. And when you turn your goal, that big goal that seems unachievable, into bite-sized chunks that your brain feel like it can achieve and slowly chip away at, that's when you take action. Your brain isn't overwhelmed anymore and it thinks, hey, I can do this little thing. And it seems like we can get there with these little goals, right? And I mentioned in the last live stream, Navy SEALs do this too. They set micro goals. They trick their brain into taking these big goals and making them into smaller goals, right? And it's called goal setting to the now in the book, The One Thing. One of my favorite books, The One Thing by Gary Keller. They talk about goal setting to the now, meaning that you start with your furthest goal away. Let's say your biggest goal is, I want to end world hunger, right? Based on that someday goal that you don't have a date for, it's just like one day I want to do this. In 10 years, what is my vision or my goal in 10 years that makes me feel like I'm on track for that someday goal? Oh, in 10 years, I should have a nonprofit that is this size and whatever, right? Or it is a for-profit organization, right? Based on that 10-year goal, you should have a 3-year vision or a goal that, if achieved, would make you feel on track for the 10-year goal. And then you dial it back to a 1-year vision, to a 3-month goal, to this month goal, to this week, to today, to right now. Right? And that's how you can take these massive goals. Like, I would not be motivated to end world hunger because I don't know how to get there. Where do I start? But if I know that if I have a great nonprofit or, let's say, business in 10 years, and in 3 years I should be profitable, and in 1 year, this year I should have the first proof of concept, and in the next 3 months or this week I should start putting together a plan, then I can be motivated. I can be like, oh, first step is this, right? So my goals were make $5,000 in profit by the end of the year. That was my yearly goal, to make it back to Australia. The 3-month goal was to just make the first sale, right? Bite-sized chunks. The 1-month goal was to find the business model that fulfills that. And I knew that week I had to research online and go to meetups to find a mentor. And then lo and behold, I met my buddy, Dennis, who had just started that business, and he basically showed me everything he did to get there, and we just became best friends, and then we both built a business. He just recently sold his business for a lot of money. I don't want to say, but I want to respect his privacy. But it starts small. So from there, you want to connect these actions that you want to do to the vision. So the Driven 30 may be a necessary resource or set of actions for you to get to your vision. So you want to connect it to the current behavior, right? Because your brain is like, okay, I want to achieve this goal, but why would I do the Driven 30? It needs to connect. Driven 30 is a stepping stone towards that, right? Your brain needs to make the connection. And you already joined the Driven 30 because you believe it to be a necessary step to achieve a goal or vision, but it may not be a clear goal or a clear enough path yet. So create more clarity, right? The more certainty your path has, the more driven you'll be. Going back to the Olympics example, right? If you're like, hey, if I do the Driven 30 and then this happens and then that happens and then, then I'll achieve my goals, you're going to be very driven to do it, right? So this is the second component. Increasing your certainty of doing it and just, making it more achievable. The third one is making it worth it. So let's say the treasure is there. You believe you can achieve it, but is it worth it? This is the third one, making it worth it. So you know what you want, you have what it takes, why not do it? Oftentimes your brain stalls you and you self-sabotage right here because there are internal conflicts holding you back. This is something that everybody struggles with. I have certainly as well. I still do to this day, and I'm still working on it. But oftentimes we have these internal conflicts where we take one step forward and two steps back. Again, everything I learned from Tony Robbins, right? He explains this really well, but I want to do my best here to bring it to you as well. So this requires a lot of self-reflection and being honest with yourself. And again, digging, this is why we journal, self-inquiry. It takes digging. And when you uncover it, it gets really clear. And there's a lot of weight that gets lifted off of your shoulders. So I believe that your level of satisfaction in life is in direct proportion to your level of self-awareness. The more you know yourself, what is holding you back, what your fears are, the more you can work on them. You can't work on a problem that you don't know exists, right? So let me give you an example of an inner conflict. You may say that you want to build this business and you want to make a lot of money, but deep down, a part of you believes that you'll end up lonely and your friends are going to judge you. You can imagine the dynamic that creates, right? Therefore, the treasure's there, you can get it, but it doesn't seem worth it because there's pain that comes with the treasure, right? So, and then you end up self-sabotaging because when you make progress, your brain or your mind demotivates you because pain is coming. And people are not aware of this, right? But if you are aware of this, you can work at it, right? And there's so many examples of that with inner conflicts where you believe one thing, you want one thing, but it actually comes with other things as well. And you're like, I don't want that, but you're not aware of that other thing. So I wish I had more examples written down, but I think that one highlights it pretty well. So the thing is, there's sacrifices associated with every behavior, right? When you are lazy, you sacrifice progress or productivity, and therefore maybe your goals, right? If you are just lying in bed all day, you're sacrificing your vision, right? Unless your vision is lying in bed all day. Building a business or getting in shape, you sacrifice some things as well, right? If you want to get in shape, you sacrifice tons of dessert and just eating whatever you want at all times and whatever else, depending on your diet, right? Sometimes, just comfort or just scrolling your phone or gossiping, that also is something that we need to sacrifice that gives us comfort and certainty. We like that stuff. A part of us likes scrolling, right? So whenever you do a behavior but you don't like it, it's because a part of you wants it because it likes the comfort, it likes the certainty that comes with it and the entertainment, and a part of you doesn't like that. So if we can get these two parts aligned, that's when we start doing the things that we want to do. And that's what this is about, right? And this is why journaling is so great, because it can uncover these things and you can reflect and find the things that are holding you back and then work on them. If you don't know what they are, And you think you know you do, but you don't. If you did, you would be able to fix it. And it's not a surface level answer. It's not that you scroll on social media and it's like, oh yeah, because I'm just lazy, I just need to do it. Yeah, okay, how's that working out for you? This knowledge of it. Did you really dig deep enough? You know? And people think that ends there and it's like, oh, I just need to be more disciplined. What a lousy, lame, boring answer. Put in work into figuring out what it really is. Don't be think lazy. The first answer that pops in your head is not good enough. Sit with it. Really dig deep. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of mental energy, but it's worth it, you know? Yeah. It takes a lot, and it takes a lot of self-reflection. It can take years to sometimes uncover these things, which is why it's good to talk to other people as well, because they might know something that you don't. And one thing I also want to mention is that ideally when it comes to setting a vision, you want to stay in alignment with your nature. Like you can set a goal to have a thriving social life with like-minded friends that support you and you support them. And you think your plan is, hey, I'm just going to be a super high energy social butterfly. But if you've been a quiet introvert your entire life, then that may not be your nature and you may have a really terrible strategy. Because being shy and being an introvert is different, right? You can be extremely confident and introverted. Introverted simply means that you get energy by being by yourself, right? That doesn't mean that you're awkward. That just means being awkward just means you're awkward. Doesn't mean you're an introvert, right? So make sure it's in alignment with your nature and the things that you actually want to do, and not you don't just want something because you want it. You actually want it, right? Yeah. And again, your level of satisfaction in life is in direct proportion to your level of self-awareness. If you can just surrender to the fact or know, hey, my nature is this, I like to do things that way, you can create a much better map in order to get somewhere. I wish I could, tell you exactly what it is for you and dive into every one single thing and do the work for you, but I can't. You need to take the journal, open it up, and spend a lot of hours over the years doing it. But to make it more exciting for you, just a 10 minutes journaling session or like one question you ask yourself can open your mind to things that you've never considered before and make things so much easier for you and lift a weight off of your shoulders. It's like so many things can happen with just 2 minutes of journaling, asking yourself a great question. And it comes down to the quality of your questions. And I talked about that in another video on my channel. I think it's a video about journaling. And there's another video, The Hidden Force That Controls You. It's like an old video where I talk about the questions that you ask yourself. Again, I learned it from Tony Robbins. I'm such a fanboy. It's a problem. But it's huge. It's massive. Very helpful. So one way that you can make a goal worth it is by resolving inner conflict, right? Sometimes you may not have an inner conflict. And another strategy is also just to increase stakes, because sometimes just increasing the stakes is enough. By increasing stakes, I mean increasing the pleasure associated with a new behavior, for example, making the vision more exciting and more clear, or increasing the pain of the status quo and old behavior. Usually it's a matter of wanting it enough. Most adults, they only change when shit hits the fan. When things get really bad, when they go really, really bad, things get really challenging. And we can manufacture that pain, not by having to go through it, but by making it clear to our minds. And it's always just a matter of wanting things enough. Sometimes that means more pain, right? So let me ask you this. Would you do 3 hours of daily meditation for a year? Every day, for 3 hours, you sit down, you stare at a wall, you do nothing. You sit there in silence. Would you do it? Probably not. If I gave you $1 million, would you do it? Absolutely. That's when it would be easy. I would happily do that, right? I have $1 million, you can do it, and it's worth it. Boom, of course I do it. The only reason why you don't stick to it or you don't do something is because you don't think it's worth it. imagine you would literally die if you didn't finish the Driven 30. You would do it. The stakes are high enough. So oftentimes, just increasing the stakes or making the treasure more worth it, or not getting the treasure, making that really painful and bad, that can fix the second component, which is figuring out how to get there. Because when the stakes are high enough, you're like, okay, I have to do it, so I'm going to figure out a way, right? If I put a gun to your head and told you have to make $1 million by the end of this month, you would probably do it. I mean, maybe you wouldn't, but if I also said I would also get your family, then you probably would, right? It may not be the most legal way, but you would find a way. So increasing the stakes can fix component number 2 oftentimes. Burning the boats back against the wall if you had to do it, right? So how do you increase stakes? Number 1, again, make the vision more exciting. One of the things that I did was writing out a perfect day in my life in 3 years from now. And I wrote it out in detail. It was like multiple pages. And I put a lot of emotion behind it and associated a lot of pleasure with it. So that can be really helpful. On the other hand, writing a negative vision. Writing a vision for what happens if you don't do anything. If you do the things you know you don't want to do. If you continue with a bad behavior that you want to get rid of. And just making this as painful as possible. Because that's when people change, unfortunately. I wish it was different. I wish people could just change because it's like, oh yeah, it's cool, it's the right thing to do, let me do it. Usually, we only change when things are really painful. But instead of waiting for pain to happen, and sometimes it can take 5 years for things to go bad enough, and then it gets really bad, instead of waiting for that, let's just play mind games and convince our mind, hey, let's do this now. It seems sadistic, but it actually leads to much less pain. So, I can already see people are like, oh, this is so toxic. He's manufacturing pain and being, unhappy. It's like, no, we're actually experiencing less pain. We experience pain short term in our minds, and then we don't experience it in real life. And then we make the world a better place because we master ourselves, and we become more capable, and we help other people on the way, right? Again, the clearer you are, the better. And yeah, over time you just get more clear and you change priorities. And these are the 3 components. So set a vision that excites you. Make a map, get clear on how you can get there, increase confidence. And number 3, make that worth it. Removing internal conflicts or like bad things that are associated with achieving the goal, right? And maybe, if necessary, increasing the pain with current behavior. That's what it all comes down to. If you are not doing an action that you believe you want to do or a part of you thinks wants to do, it's because of that. You're lacking one of the 3 things. You don't think the treasure is there. You don't have a vision. You don't think you can get to it, or you don't think it's worth it, or there's just pain involved with it, right? That's what it comes down to. And I know it's a lot to digest. It may be a lot to think about, but it's worth it. It's worth it. I believe 30 days can change your life. I know this is very overused. Change your life. But I'm going to be cheesy here. I'm going to give myself full permission to be cheesy. A 30-day challenge may only be 30 days. But if you approach it right, it can have lasting change. Because if you set a vision and you set up systems to stick to it, as we talked about in the first live stream, these 30 days can put you on a trajectory towards your vision. And these 30 days can help you build lasting momentum in the next 3 months. The next 3 months can help you towards achieving a goal this year that you believed to be impossible. And that yearly goal that you achieve can open your eyes to the endless possibilities for the rest of your life. For most people, this will just be a 30-day blip. But for those of us that set an exciting, driving vision that is clear, achievable, and worthwhile, this can be the beginning of the rest of our life. So thank you so much to Element, again, for sponsoring this, making this possible. I'm really enjoying this. And seeing you guys go through it is very exciting, and benefiting from it, seeing the community thrive on Circle. It's amazing. If you want to support us, again, drinkelement.com/driven30. I'm going to put it in the chat again. This is the best way to support us. This is how we are funding this project. This is why we're able to offer this stuff for free, of charge for you, right? And thank you so much to Element. It's a great product. I've been using it for months. Check it out. And I want to also get into some Q&A. So next live stream, we're going to talk about the identity piece, right? How do we shift our identity? Because that's, in the end, the biggest driver of our actions. And then, yeah, let's do some Q&A. There's a few questions that I wanted to get to. And yeah, there's some cool updates in the community. I saw someone deleting their Blizzard account they had for 15 years, I think, and just taking this step to delete the account is big. I've been a gamer myself. I'm not playing video games anymore, but I know how attached I was to it, and I still have a place in my heart for it. I love the community. I love what it stands for. I love video games as an art form, and I know how much power that takes to let something like that go. And then somebody else jumped on board as well and deleted it as well. So those are really exciting things. There's some really cool updates from people who are showing that they had 3 hours of screen time. Now they're down to 1 hour, right? You just get 2 hours back. And it's exciting. There's people connecting. There are people who are already making new friends here. There's accountability groups forming and little masterminds of filmmakers or people that are starting an agency. And it's really cool seeing you from all over the world. So let's do some Q&A. Let's see. Lucas asks, were there other roads you could have gone down instead of Amazon FBA? Which ones were the most tempting, and how did you say no to the woman in the red dress? So Amazon FBA, for context, is the business model that I started with, my first business, that then allowed me to move back to Australia. There were other things I could have done, but this seemed like the best opportunity. And by woman in the red dress, I think Lucas means shiny objects, right? Other opportunities, and I could do this as well, and let me just switch that, right? I am really good with that. I know most of my friends, they jump from one opportunity to the next, and they're like, oh, let me do this and also do this. I've always had clarity on knowing that when you just focus on one thing, results are exponential. And when you add another thing, then you build two things that are good, but you would have achieved 5 times more if you just stuck with one. I've always just known that, and I'm very disciplined when it comes to saying no. I'm really good at that, which is why it took so long to build this community and, do this challenge. And I kept putting it off because it felt like another thing on the plate, right? So I don't know if I can give you much advice, but I think it's just, for me, it just comes from knowing the cost of doing another thing and switching again. I just knew that having my own products and launching on Amazon was a sustainable long-term model, and I was thinking long-term. Again, I had a clear vision, and I was able to reverse engineer that. Other business models wouldn't have gotten me there. And there would have been some, but I didn't see them. So when you have a clear vision, I think that's what it may come down to. When you know what you want long-term, it becomes a filter for all the actions that you're taking, right? You end up meeting a person and dating them, but in 3 years you want to be in this position, but their behavior just doesn't line up, and it'll never lead there. So you end up cutting them off, right? Or you end up breaking up with them because you just know, I want to have kids in 3 years or in 5 or 10 years, and I know you are just career driven and you don't want that. And you think kids are terrible. It's like that can save you years of pain just knowing that, right? So I think that's what it comes down to. If you know what you really want, you've clearly defined it, it becomes very easy to say no to things because it becomes a filter. John asks, I would love to hear your advice on how to find one's purpose. Oh, damn. I have a lot of random skills and resources, but I have no clue where to direct them to bring me lasting fulfillment and happiness. I'm only 27 years old. What am I going to sell? Okay, this guy needs to find his life purpose. So, John, I think for me personally, it took me a while to define it, but it was always a little bit clear. I think a life's purpose is usually something around making things other than yourself better, helping people, helping the environment, making the world a better place. And it can be as broad as you want it to be. Maybe your life's purpose is just to realize the beauty in life, right? And maximize that, right? Or my purpose, the way I have defined it, is to be a caring, courageous leader who unites people and inspires joy, love, and aliveness. It just feels good. It's just I've always, looking back at my life, I've always wanted to grab people and be like, hey, you can do this. I always wanted to be a cheerleader for people. I always wanted people to believe in themselves and yeah, to just go on a journey together with them, right? That's how I found it, and it came throughout my life. But I think you can for now just pick something that resonates somewhat, and then just adjust it over time. You know, you're going to continue self-reflecting if you continue with the journaling, which I highly recommend, and you get more and more clear. I think a lot of it comes also from past pain. You know, things that you've always been very passionate about. You see patterns in your life, and that can usually lead you to what it might be, right? And it can change too, I believe. Yeah, I wouldn't, don't start with the skills and resources. It's similar to setting a vision based on the things that you think you can achieve. Like if I was like, okay, I got 500,000 subscribers, I built a business before. Based on these things, what could be a 10-year goal that I set? What could be a 10-year vision? You don't want to start that way. You want to start with goal setting to the now is you start with the furthest thing away and then you reverse engineer. So instead of looking at the skills and resources you have and then attaching a vision to that or a purpose, what is the purpose? And then from there, you can utilize your resources and skills towards that. Even if you don't see it yet, but I think there is a way, right? Like even if you're good at coding, but you want to see you want to bring life's beauty to everyone, right? Whatever it is, however you define it, you can do that with coding as well. You know, I don't know how, but you know, you may be able to make a software that, you know, just allows people to capture the most beautiful memories in their life, whatever, right? So that's that. I wish I could be more helpful, but there may be some good points here. Surya asks, does using PDF textbooks and watching MOOC, massive open online courses, lectures count as screen time? I don't know. This is not an interesting question, really. Let's see. Matthew asks, I feel like sustainability is key to maintaining a lot of good habits, but they simultaneously take away from other good things in life. It's hard to strike a balance between allowing something unhealthy to occur once, only for it to turn into a bad habit afterwards. For example, eating out at a restaurant, having a lazy day, etc. What advice do you have on managing these one-off sort of deals? Yeah, I'm an all or nothing type of guy. So I'm not the best to ask for this, but I believe clearly defining it beforehand. If you allow yourself one cheat meal a week, it's very clear, you know, and then you have it. And then if you're tempted again, you're like, no, I had it, right? And I think it's important for a lot of people, it's important to just have these things. You know, they just want to have some ice cream on Sundays, and that's beautiful. And I want them to enjoy that, right? If that is a true joy in your life, you must have it, I believe, right? For me, very easy to not have that. For some people, that's a beauty, you know, that's amazing. Even with social media, like I want to be on social media. I want to watch YouTube. I want to watch HBO. When House of the Dragon season 2 hits, I'm first in line. And I do not regret a single minute that I spent watching Game of Thrones. That was extremely well spent lifetime, because before I did it, I had anticipation. While I did it, I enjoyed it. And after I watched it, I felt good. And I had, a lot of conversations with my friends about it. It was a beautiful experience. It was a bonding experience. It was amazing. So I'm all for these things. I think just clearly defining it. And when you're in a good headspace, defining, okay, how do I want to integrate this into my life? And what are the parameters, right? Because then it can quickly turn into a downward spiral where you're like having ice cream every second day and you're like, oh, but this is important to me, right? So, yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Define it clearly, and that's how you make it sustainable, which is also a thing that we want to talk about in a later live stream. How do we make a 30-day challenge like this? How do we integrate this into our life so it becomes sustainable? And one of the things maybe having a cheat meal. For a lot of people, that's important, and that's beautiful, and I think they should have it. So just defining that clearly, I think that'll solve that. Claudia asks, one of the goals of the challenge is to limit your social media consumption. Now I see some people posting their daily goals and accomplishments here every day and posting YouTube videos about every single day of the challenge. Some use the site here like a second Instagram. Isn't that exactly the opposite of what the challenge is supposed to achieve? No, it isn't. So I don't have anything against social media. I think it's great. I love social media. I love staying in touch with my friends. I want to see what they're up to. I like posting about it so they know what I'm up to, and it's a beautiful tool. There are some things that we want to limit, right? So it's not black and white. It's not like entertainment bad or social media bad and not, journaling and exercising everything good. It's like, no, we want to take away the best of these tools and leave away the bad. Now, I think what you're saying, Claudia, is that some people use it as a distraction, and yes, that's what we don't want. But it depends on how you use it, right? So for the people that are using the community to just scroll and see what other people are up to and they use it as a distraction, you're absolutely right. This is the opposite of what it's supposed to achieve. And that's not something that we can control, right? That's on them. However, what we want to achieve with a community like that is that you connect with other people, which is what social media is for as well, right? And yeah, it really depends on how people use it. So there's a lot of people that say, hey, Leon, you say people shouldn't waste time on social media, but you make YouTube videos. That's so hypocritical. Not saying that you say that, Claudia. I know that you you don't think that. Well, I believe so. But it's funny because it's not that I'm saying any form of social media is bad. I think YouTube is great. I love watching YouTube videos. I will always do that for the rest of my life. And it's just being intentional with it. That's all that it's about. And it's going to be misconstrued so many times. There's going to be so many people with smart comments, with anime profile pictures that are like, oh, he's such a hypocrite. He's saying on YouTube that you should not waste time. So yeah, super smart internet warrior. They don't get the nuances, right? So yeah, there's nuances to it, right? So social media has enabled so much good stuff for all of us, and we want to take away the good and limit the bad. That's it. Leonard asks, why create an online community apart from connecting people? As you say, you're kind of winging it, but inside, do you think you might have aspirations of what this could become? A personal goal of yours? Curious to hear your answer. Yeah, so we just want to be intentional with how we built this community, and what this could become, we don't know yet. I mean, it's been very overwhelming. The amount of people that flooded in. There were some trolls, a lot of people with anonymous profiles that were just annoying that we had to cut out, right? So we brought it to a really good point. Eventually, we want to have a tight-knit community with people with real faces, real personalities, and who knows, maybe the inner circle will eventually be a place where, we have somebody in every major city in the world that runs a meetup, and they're licensed or whatever. They, we choose them, and then they run meetups or whatever. There's so many plans. I wish I could tell you more. We're just winging it. We're just seeing, we're just seeing how we can serve you, listening to your feedback, and then seeing what comes of it. So We're always open for feedback. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, cool. These are some questions. There's no more good questions that I'm seeing here. Some of you guys really need to get better at asking questions. I hate to say it, but like, some of these questions I could just say like, just do it. So, how do I realize that I should not procrastinate? How do I stop scrolling on social media? It's like, well, how am I going to answer that? Like, just just you know the answer. Come on. There's so many resources out there online. Anyways, this is the stream. Next stream is going to be next week, probably also on Thursday. We're going to talk about shifting identity and how to make this sustainable long term. Hope this was helpful. If so, let me know. If not, stay home and don't tell me. drinkelement.com/driven30. That's drinklmnt.com/DRVN30. Buy it, support the guys. They're supporting us. And thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to the next 3 weeks of this challenge. Peace.